Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about something new for the Let's Slow Down podcast. We're going to be talking about finances. We have Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell here today. She's from the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast, and we are so happy to have you. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. I'm excited to jump in and talk about money today. So before we get too much into the thick of it, tell us a little bit about what you do, your business and your podcast.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give the grand overview. So my background, I actually spent 18 years in television. I'm Emmy nominated. I did that for quite a while, and I thought I would always kind of live in that television land. My grandparents raised me. They were mom and dad. And when my grandpa passed, we found ourselves obviously shocked because my grandpa was that crabby guy that we thought would live forever, right? And he didn't. And we were like, what just happened? And my grandma and I were very, very close. And we found ourselves going in front of, different banks and different advisors and trying to just clean up everything. And it's not that they had a lot, but what they had was spread around. And we would sit in front of folks and we never had that warm, fuzzy feeling that anyone cared or was doing what was in her best interest. And so she said, if we're going through this, imagine how many other women are going through this as well. So I said, I'll learn everything I can. And here I am, 14 years later with Platinum Wealth Management, which is my own wealth management firm.
Wow. That must have been scary at the time, being younger and going through that and probably feeling like you couldn't trust anybody.
Finance is exhausting and it's a foreign language. If you don't know it or know how to navigate it, you're really relying on everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
So really to kind of build up that education base, which again, you don't learn that in school. I mean, At least we didn't back in our generation. And definitely my grandparents or parents didn't have, the solid base of education when it comes to finance because it wasn't necessarily taught mainstream.
Right.
So really learning this whole foreign language and helping others along the way.
And with that education piece, I've said this so many times, and it blows my mind that, I have a master's degree. I was never required to take finance courses. I was required to take foreign language courses, a few of them, but never a finance course. And I think maybe my high school offered like one as an elective that, of course I didn't take it then. And when I graduated and I'm out in the world adulting, there was a lot to learn, because it really was a foreign language, like you were saying. And you feel then you almost feel kind of stupid because like, why don't I know this? How do I not understand this? I remember getting my first paycheck as a teacher and I couldn't believe how much lower the number was than I thought because of everything that they take out. And I really didn't truly grasp all of that until I started having a salaried job. But I feel like that was a lot too late. We should be learning these things younger. My oldest is in high school and they do have several finance courses, which I was happy to see that are required. I think there's 2 or 3 that are required. So that's a step in the right direction, right? But no matter what she chooses to major in down the road in college, I am going to make sure she gets a good background in finance because it affects us all, right? So there's no excuse to not have the basics at a young age so that even in high school, as you start to have your first job, you make smart money decisions.
I feel like that conversation needs to happen even sooner when possible, right? And as parents, you almost have to take some responsibility and be like, okay, I'm going to do better than what I had for myself and help my kids. That's one thing that, again, is on my plate as goals is writing children's books about finance so there can be an early understanding.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. And really, my thought is to have that as something that I give to schools and again, educators or even preschools. I want to have those early conversations. So there's some sort of a seed planted there so that, financial responsibility can become financial empowerment, quite frankly. I call her my tiny dancer. So I met her when she was 3, right? She's just turned 13. My stepdaughter, fantastic. When she was little, she knew what I did, right? So she had this whole concept of like, yeah, I'm going to do what you do and I'm going to do TV stuff and I'm going to do financial stuff. And I'm going to do everything. So we let her kind of, stew in like whatever her goals want to be by all means. But we really wanted her to start understanding the value of
Yeah.
investing. So for her, we said, what do you really love? Like, what do you love? And when you're little, like your, love level obviously is much smaller, right? You love maybe candy or soda, which aren't always the best, or you love like Disneyland or a theme park or something,
Yeah.
right? So for her, we started her with like just a stock of Disney, right? For her when she was very little. And I remember going to the park with her and she's like, I own this place. I own it. And we're like, no, no, you want maybe like a rock here, like maybe a rock over there. Like
Yeah.
that's maybe what you, but for her, it was the mentality of like that ownership and just starting to understand the concepts of it and how important that was. And I always kind of joke about this story. We talk about that now because she said that when she was super little, but like that resonated with her. And that
Yes.
is something she will always remember. That's something I'll always remember. And I'll always share that just because I feel like that was such a powerful moment.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I mean, writing some children's books, like some toddler books about this stuff, I think would be a great idea. They don't exist. They don't
I know.
exist. And like you said, just to have some basic
Super
ideas
basic.
to empower them as they get older. Sometimes I don't keep a lot of cash on me. Sometimes I'm going into my kids' wallets to pay for stuff. They laugh because I put Post-its in, like, "Mom owes you." One point, I think my little one's Post-it stash was up to, like, $75, and my older 2 were like, "Why does she even have that much money in her glitter wallet?" So, it's so true. It's so important, and look at what an impact it made on her at a young age. And Disney stock, I guess you can't go wrong, probably, right?
Well, again, not telling anyone to do that same path by any means, because it depends on what, makes sense for you, of
Sure.
course. But for her, that did make sense. And for her, now she has an understanding. And there actually are, you have to dig for them, but there's children's stock classes literally that are put on by different groups
Mhm.
online. So you can do a Zoom class where your kid can learn how to build portfolios or be an analyst. And she's taken some of those classes. It's like a week class or a 2-week class. I mean, they're minimal. Well, we did them over summer and it was something that she was so proud of. Like she had the top 3 portfolio out of like 20 little kids. And then
Oh,
she
wow.
got an analyst certificate. I mean, very basic, but fantastic for her to get that continued education on that.
It's funny that you mentioned that because my son, he's actually been asking us for a while, like, "Can I want to invest some money?" He was really interested in the concept. So luckily, Kristen, shout out to you. Aunt Kristen came to the rescue. She works in finance. And I said, "You know what? Call Aunt Kristen. She'll help you. She can give you the advice that, I wish I had had at your age. She can teach you." And she was awesome. She found one of those classes. So
Oh,
they're doing
good.
that together. And they have, I think it's like $100,000 or something that they get to invest and then see what happens with it, pretend money. And I thought, like, that was the first I had ever heard of anything like that. And I said, I want to take the class too because I want to learn this stuff. So we'll kind of be doing it together. She was explaining something to him and they were on FaceTime and she's like, "Oh, is mom there?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm learning too. You're teaching us both."
That's so good though,
Yeah,
right? Like
it
your
is.
little one's learning, you're learning, everybody's learning along the way. It's
Exactly.
so important.
So yeah, so it is cool. I had no idea that those types of opportunities existed out there. So very good. That's some really good advice for people.
Yeah, and education is there. Like I shared with you before, like that's something that's huge for us, not only in podcasts, right? Completely educational, but something that we offer to anybody. We do a virtual event monthly on different financial topics, whether that be, with a market analyst from CNBC or Bloomberg Television that opens up to a Q&A over Zoom, right? Because we've got clients all over the place or
Right.
folks wherever can come in and join. Also doing those on like, what are the new things coming up in the world of trusts and legalities there? What's coming down the pike when it comes to tax reform, Social Security. So all of those different financial topics that have moving parts in them behind the scenes,
Right.
right? Every year we have those on a monthly basis behind the scenes to
That's
to join, and
awesome.
those are free and they're completely educational.
I will be tuning in. How would you say, and I know that there's connections with slowing down in every aspect of our life. So how do you think slowing down can affect a person's finances?
I think really they go hand in hand. I think when you really have that conversation of like, why are you saving money or why are you investing money? Many times it comes to, well, I want more time. And I feel like time is one of those very, very ridiculously valuable assets that
Mhm.
sometimes we don't realize, but ultimately we know. You're saving money to potentially have more time with friends or family or to be able to free up whatever it is that you want to do and that you enjoy in your time. So they go hand in hand together. I think, really time and health, those are invaluable.
Yep.
And if you're saving money, what's truly the reason behind it? I think it goes back to like truly what are your goals? And everybody's goals are different
Yep.
ultimately, but there's always that time value behind the scenes of that's an important factor.
Yeah, the why behind it all, right? As we get
Yes.
older, we really
Yes.
start asking why with everything. Because I think if we're on that hamster wheel, you don't have time to ask why. You don't have time to really think through the intention behind what you're doing, finances and everywhere else. And that can be a slippery slope. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, like you said, you don't have time. You're burnt out. Maybe you're in debt. And you're like, how did this even happen? Like, I didn't even realize it was happening because we can't be present.
Right. And I feel like when you're on that hamster wheel, you're doing what you can to make it through day by day.
Yeah, survival
And
mode.
and this is where I think stepping back, it's not always easy, right? Holistically stepping back and being like, okay, what's big picture? What's my game plan? When do I want to retire? Does it make sense with what I'm doing now? Do I find joy in my career path? Not every day by any means, but for the most part, joy in what I'm doing. Am I making a difference? Is that impactful for me and others around me? So I feel like having those self conversations are so important. And then working with someone to put together a financial plan, making sure that you're doing the right things so you can retire, right? Are you, looking at things like, does your company offer something, whether that be a 401k or whatnot? Are you taking advantage of that? Do you have emergency money behind the sidelines? Do you have all these in place to make sure that you can hit the goals that you find so important?
I love that. And then the peace of mind that comes along with that, then you're not constantly stressed about it and worried and having that in the back of your head all the time. I had read a book, that 4-Hour Work Week. You've probably heard of it. And he has such an interesting perspective on the regular job. And there's no 9 to 5 in his language. And what he wanted his life to look like, what he defined as success and wealth. Obviously, it's very unique to each person. He had people as examples in the book where these people were quote unquote, retiring at a very young age. They were making a lot of money and then living their life. And I was like, I never even thought about that. Like, everything's just always, well, you work until you're
Yeah,
65 or whatever. And it's just, I think it's fun to kind of dream about, what do you want it to look like? What do you want retirement to look like? How long do you want to work? Like you were saying, is your work even fulfilling for you? Is it bringing you joy? If you're completely burnt out, I've seen people that work so hard and they finally retire and all of a sudden then they're sick. They
yeah.
they worked themselves to the bone, or they're too stressed out, or they have a heart attack and then they're just gone and they didn't get to enjoy that next chapter. So having this plan in place is super important and it'll just benefit your life in every aspect, I think.
I do, and I think Tim Ferriss, who is the author of that book,
Hmm.
I think he gives some valuable points and things to think about. I don't think that's maybe feasible for everyone to do a
Right.
4-hour work week,
Right.
right? I think that's a specific type of person, but
Yep.
can it happen? Yeah, if you want it to, you bet. I think that there's definitely sacrifices that he's made to get to that point too, what
Totally.
he's done and
Yeah.
and how he built his foundation. But I think it comes down to, again, having that self-talk and saying, "Hey, am I happy with what I'm doing? Am I fulfilled by what I'm doing? Am I making enough to retire when I want? Like, what does that look like?" Or maybe you're trying to also enjoy life as you're working too and trying to find that balance where it's not
Mhm.
just for retirement. You're doing some of it now and trying to encompass, a better balance in your world
Yes.
right now.
Yeah, I love it. Having it be something that you focus on and is in the forefront of your mind, because I know for me personally, sometimes, a lot of the times, I don't think about it so much. And I'm one of those people that does kind of like dump it on my husband more or less. And I'm not proud of that. It's just so much has happened along the way where life gets so busy and the kids and all the things.
Yeah,
And you probably see it a lot where maybe one spouse takes the lead, right?
totally. Interesting on that. So I'll piggyback on that
Yeah.
statement too. I really encourage couples or partners or whatever your relationship looks like to both be present. Simply because, like, back to my grandma, right? She
Yep.
wasn't the person, he was the
Right.
person. So we're mourning the loss of him, and then at that point, trying to navigate in so many different directions as well. The last thing you wanna do is trying to navigate everything when you're mourning the loss of someone.
Yeah.
So if you can be present in those financial decisions or at least understand what's going on or why you're investing the way you are or what things look like or what your financial plan roadmap really looks like, I think that is invaluable because again, we don't want to lose anyone. It happens, but we want to be as prepared as we can be for that time when
Yeah.
it does happen to have at least a little bit of breathing room on that side of things.
100%. That's great advice. Like I said, I'll be sitting in your monthly class to learn more. And it's definitely something that's been on my mind. Like, okay, I need to work on this more. I need to be more involved.
When then life
It's,
takes over and you're running in 15 different directions, right? So I
yes.
get it. I
Yep.
totally get it. But
But it's
when
important.
you have and we tease, like, so my husband, he wears many hats like I do. He also does some financial things too. He works as a CFO, he's an attorney, and he's an engineer. So he's a crazy person, much like myself. However, I take the lead, obviously, and, that style with us, but we always bring the conversation back together. Like, what are we doing? And we tease, we're like, it's fun Friday night date night, glass of wine, and we talk through finances of where we at, or what's this look like, or what are we spending on, or where do we need to pull back? Like, what do things look like truly? But I think having just that raw conversation consistently with one another, nothing gets lost in translation along the
Yeah.
way. And I think that's so valuable.
Yeah. I mean, things will get lost in translation, not intentionally, right? It's
Totally.
just, there's too
Just
much going
life.
on. What are some stresses that you've seen, or maybe that can be easily avoided with maybe this communication, or a little more education? Are there a couple things that come to mind?
Yeah, I think I keep kind of beating the drum of like having a plan in place,
Hmm.
right? Thinking of that as a roadmap.
Yeah.
So you want to have a budget, a ballpark budget, right? So if you think, hey, I can spend this much, and really you can only spend this much, if you're on the same page of what makes sense and what you can spend to still reach your goals, that is invaluable. I've got clients that have, millions of dollars invested with me and they spend a lot of it. I've got clients that have, millions of dollars invested with me and they spend $1,500 a month. So, granted, those are unique situations. Not
Hmm.
everybody's in that situation by any means, but regardless of what you have or don't have invested, you still want to figure out like, what can I live within my means? What does that look like? And then by doing that, everything starts falling into place. Then you're not in massive debt. You're not overspending. You know what your snapshot looks like. I have a dear friend that her favorite thing is budgets. Like, she is a television entertainment person, but she loves budgets. It's her favorite thing in the world. And I always tease her, but she's like, budgets are the greatest thing ever. She's like, budgets allow you to spend more because you know what it looks like. So I think she really brings an interesting perspective to the whole thing, just because by knowing what you have, then you know what you have.
Yes.
So that's, I think, invaluable. And I think having a financial plan, just saying, hey, where am I at? Where do I want to go ballpark wise? And knowing that that's going to change a bunch of times along the way, right? Is someone going to pass away? Is there going to be an inheritance? Do you change jobs? Like, do you move? Like, do you have more kids? Like, what does that look like? That's going to evolve with you. And I think
Right.
just having some knowledge there and a snapshot, not just wondering and hoping. I think hoping is a fantastic thing, but have some valid, foundation behind the scenes there too.
Good advice. Definitely can't go wrong with those things in place, right? I'm going to ask a two-part question here. The first part is, I'm just fascinated by morning routines. So, wondering if you have a specific morning routine in place. Some people do, some people don't. And then, as a follow up, what does slow living look like to you in your life?
Those are both really fantastic questions. So I feel like my routine keeps changing depending on what's going on in my world, right? Um, I do feel being raw and vulnerable, I could do so much better here, right? This is an area where I'm like, I'm running in lots of directions and I enjoy it and I love what I do and I feel like I make a difference. But could I do better with my own balance? Absolutely. I don't have that figured out. I feel like that's a quest for me every year saying, okay, yes, I'm going to work out here, or I'm going to do this here, or I'm going to do some more continuing education here. And I do it, but then like life happens and I evolve and things are crazy or whatever. And I'm not consistent. So with my own personal time, right? I'm the person, which I think a lot of women are, you put yourself on the back burner,
Hmm.
right? You take care of everybody else and making
Yep.
sure everybody's good. And you really make that a priority and taking care of clients or family or whatever that looks like. But then at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, it's like 7:30 and I need to go to bed, right? Because you've been
Yep.
running all day so hard. So that is actually, I feel like that's my New Year's resolution almost every year. It's like, yes, better balance, better balance. So this year again, better balance. I'm doing better, but I'm not where I need to be yet. I'm definitely a work in progress. So
Has
for
there
me,
been
I'm like trying to,
something that like really helped make it, move in the right direction this year?
time blocking.
Mm,
So I'm a hard time blocker. I live on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen in my world. So
okay.
for me, I'm really trying to be like, okay, yes, I need to go to the dentist. And the dentist is on my calendar and there it is for all the world to see. Same thing with like the occasional massage or like, again, any like self-love, self-care things, I stick on my calendar. And I'm trying to be more consistent about putting something on once a week at least to have that little respite where I'm taking care of myself so that I can take care of everyone else. So I'm better, but I'm not where I want to be yet. So still work in progress.
Awesome. As we kind of wrap up today, is there any tips or advice? Definitely having that roadmap, plan, little snapshot of your finances. Anything else you want to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, just leaning into communication, right? I feel like talking with your partner, your spouse, whatever your home dynamic looks like, valuable, very valuable. Finding someone that you can work with if you choose that, that you have good communication with. I feel like that is such an important factor because these are long-term relationships,
Yes.
right? And you want to cultivate that and you want to make sure you're on the same page with whomever you are leaning into. I think that communication factor we tease, like I try to over communicate because I think that's super important. I'd rather have the conversation multiple times so we're always on the same page. And I want to hear all the things. Like I want to know every aspect why you're doing what you're doing so I can help support in those situations more as well. So I think regardless, communication, like definitely a strong lean. And I think that that's just such an important factor for all of us to, really just embrace.
Yes. Yes. With everything. I think that you can't go wrong if you're over communicating. At least people know where you stand. Just having that open communication can certainly lend itself to having a clear picture of what we're doing. And I think for me, that's the whole point of trying to slow down, to have that big picture and see it and understand it and know how I want to feel. What am I intentionally trying to create here? So same with money, right? It's it's so
Totally.
important. Jennifer, this was fun. This was refreshing for me. I don't think we talk about money enough in our society. This is refreshing and it's so interesting. Something that I certainly want to learn more about. So thank you for sharing your ideas and your knowledge with us. And I will link all of your information in the show notes because I have a feeling that I'm not the only one who's going to check out your monthly meetings and learn more about you. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have been inspired to slow down and start living life at your own pace. As a brand new podcast, your listener voice matters. If Let's Slow Down is resonating with you, please take a minute to leave a review and rate us. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen and share it with friends. Remember, this is a process, so go easy on yourself. Be gentle and take all the space you need to thrive because the world needs you to be at your best, to love and serve others and yourself.